like choice neighborhoods and promise neighborhoods to transform those neighborhoods into places with the affordable housing, good schools, and safe streets that are the hallmarks of every vital urban economy. The third pillar of the administration's approach to urban economic policy is better aligning the federal approach with local rules of the road, the laws and regulations that govern our city's economic activity. Mobility of capital and people means in the 21st century that our cities aren't just competing against their regional neighbors. They face competitors from across the country and across the globe. In fact, we were just having this conversation a few moments ago about the airport here in the Detroit region. A big part of what allows cities to win that competition and collaborate with other places that share an economic future is their regulatory structures, from taxes to land use. That is why, for instance, Wayne County Executive Fianco has worked with 9 municipalities to fast-track development surrounding the airport. Supporting that kind of leadership is one reason President Obama has ordered a government-wide effort to cut through the red tape by streamlining rules and regulations that affect everyone from regional auto parts suppliers to local boards of education. That's why the President supports fundamental corporate tax reform that closes narrow industry-specific loopholes and lowers incremental tax rates. Simplicity, transparency, responsiveness to market conditions, and fairness are essential to a competitive 21st century tax code. And the cost of complying with federal rules and the federal tax code should never be a barrier to investing in the future of our families, our businesses, and our cities. Of course, when it comes to the way cities manage transportation, building, and land use, it isn't always federal barriers that get in the way, but often that every community in a region has a different set of rules and codes. We forged a historic interagency partnership for sustainable communities to help align housing and transportation investments so that they can be responsive to the needs of regional economies. We know how important these tools are to regenerating regions, particularly those like Michigan, which rely on integrated supply chains that cross national borders and are essential to meeting the President's charge to double U.S. exports over the next 5 years. That's why we awarded a grant to help Detroit Metro undertake a new wave of transportation zoning, building code, and land use reform. While this grant has reminded us how challenging cooperation can be at the regional and interjurisdictional level, recent efforts to build the Riverwalk and to reform the Water Board show that with the right leadership and capacity, these challenges can be met. And when they are met, this administration wants to be the kind of partner that comes to the table with resources that reward and leverage these reforms, making real gains possible. This brings us to the fourth and final pillar of the administration's approach to urban economic policy. Not only supporting local leaders, but reinforcing the capacity of the institutions they lead. Of all the elements I've described that comprise a city, its people, its places, its own rules of the road, the ability to support leaders and the capacity of their institutions is not only the most fundamental because it impacts all the others, but also the one Washington has traditionally gotten the most wrong. So many urban policies of the past have failed, either because inflexible federal policies either ignored or even worked against local leadership and institutions, or because they didn't take into account the unique assets of every community, nor did they account for the capacity of these local institutions. And while the federal role may have withered in the wake of the Great Society, in the wake of the Great Recession, it has returned out of necessity. But as we've imagined urban policy for the 21st century, this administration recognizes three fundamental things about cities that reflect the lessons of the last century. First, that every city needs a federal partner that understands that one size doesn't fit all, and that it never will. Second, that being a good partner isn't just about seeing the problems. It's about recognizing where the opportunities are as well. And third, that no city can succeed without strong local leadership and institutional capacity, no matter how big the federal grant or how well crafted the federal policy. While a federal partner that understands the importance of local capacity is important for every city and region in America, it's absolutely essential for those places that were facing long-term structural challenges well before the Great Recession hit. That is why this week the Obama administration is launching a Strong Cities, Strong Communities pilot. It's an initiative in 6 cities and regions: Memphis, Cleveland, New Orleans, Chester, Pennsylvania, Fresno, California, and right here in Detroit. We chose these cities not simply because they face common challenges: severe population loss and long-term economic decline, high levels of poverty and unemployment, and low property values and deteriorating infrastructure. Just as important is the assets they bring, from anchor institutions to a comprehensive vision for economic development to the political leadership and will of regional, city, and philanthropic leaders. For instance, in response to losing the competition with neighboring states to attract relocating businesses, Memphis Mayor A.C. Wharton built a strong relationship with Shelby County Mayor Mark Luttrell to create the Economic Development Growth Engine, or EDGE, which merged 7 public offices under a single roof so that they can compete regionally. Or in the city of Fresno, where Mayor Ashley Swearingen is working to undo the damage that decades of